Hi guys, it's Brooke here. I have a super quick favor to ask. When you have a moment, please take just a second to give this podcast a 5-star review. This will help me to continue the podcast and continue to bring these resources to the community. Thank you so much for that 5-star review.
It is really hard for me in a difficult moment to be like, okay, like, how's my body feeling? How do I get my heart rate to slow down? Because, you're talking about how like we sync into each other's rhythms. So if I can get my body to like try to be regulated, that's going to be helpful in that moment. So I think understanding that is important, but also having grace with yourself because even though we know this science, it is so hard. It's
Yes.
so hard. And I think that even speaks to the value. Like one of my clients told me, like, even when you're trying so hard to be a support to me and you just don't get it quite right, just apologize because that's so deeply validating.
Hi, guys, it's Brooke here, and I'm excited to tell you about our episode today. Today, we're going to be talking about interoception, and I have occupational therapist Dr. Kelly Mahler on to help us better understand what interoception is, what it looks like if your son or daughter might have poor interoception, or maybe it's your client, and some really practical strategies and activities that you can do to work on strengthening interoception. And I appreciate this conversation because working on these areas can really support self-awareness and self-regulation and ultimately self-advocacy, which I believe is so important to work on and address. And I'm grateful for Kelly for being on today and sharing this wonderful information with our listeners, and I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm so excited today to talk about this important topic of interoception. It's something that I've been learning about over the last few years, and just really grateful to have this amazing expert on today. Kelly, thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to dive into this topic together and learn myself. I know I'm going to learn some amazing things, but first I'm going to go ahead and introduce you and share our listeners a little bit more about you. So Kelly Mahler is an award-winning occupational therapist, author, and interoception groupie known for her boundless curiosity and fondness for crunching pine cones. I love that. Holding a doctorate in occupational therapy, she has served school-aged children and adults for over 22 years. Kelly is author of 12 resources, including the Interoception curriculum, now used in over 30 countries worldwide. She enjoys speaking internationally on interoception, neural-affirming practices, and playful strategies for inner exploration using a lens of curiosity, validation, and empathy. So welcome, Kelly.
Really great to be here. I can't wait for this conversation.
Oh, I love it. So good. So, well, let's just talk about interoception because I know there's probably a lot of people out there that maybe have heard about it or maybe haven't heard about it. I know in my work, I come across a lot of people and parents and professionals that haven't heard about it and would love to have you just share what it is and why it's so important to understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just hearing this word interoception for the first time, you're not alone. It is the newest sensory system to be defined by scientists. And so we're still learning so much about this sense. But what we do know is that interoception is the sense that allows us to experience how our body feels. And so this is going to be so different for each one of us, but I'm wondering if anyone out there listening has ever noticed a sensation coming from their body. Like it could be like maybe like a pounding or racing heart, or maybe it's like, like an empty feeling in your stomach or a full bladder or, sore muscles. Like all of those body sensations, we experience them because of the sense called interoception. And really like what interoception science is showing us is that being connected to our body, being able to notice and understand these sensations is really like the foundation of being able to regulate our emotions, regulate our body's needs, like even toileting and feeding. And so it's really profoundly important, but we're all just learning about it, pretty recently.
Amazing. Well, I didn't realize it was so new. I'm so glad that you shared that because That makes a lot of sense. And, I love that you're on this journey and you've dived in so deep with this and really brought it to the masses and brought it in a way that feels tangible and approachable. So we're going to talk about that, kind of some specifics on ways that you can work on these things. But I know, and when I was researching this episode and checking out your website, you have really great free resources on your website. Highly recommend that our listeners go to your website and listen to them if they want to learn more. But you had mentioned in one of your videos about low and high levels of interoception awareness. And I'd love for you to share just a little bit about what that looks like for individuals if you have high or low awareness in this area.
Yeah, this is something that we're really learning from the community, like people that have lived experience. And, what we know is that every single one of us, everyone listening here, you and me, we all have different levels of how aware we are of these body sensations that, we just talked about. So there's this like range of awareness, and that for some people, they do report being on like extreme ends, I guess, if you will. And so like that's what you're, I think, referring to, this low and high level of like how aware you are. So we know that some people describe their internal experience as being muted. So that could be like the lower level of awareness. So they might just completely miss body signals. Like they might not notice the signals letting them know when they're hungry or when they need to pee or when they're getting overwhelmed. Or for some people that have this muted interoceptive experience, they do notice body signals, but only when those signals get to like a really big place. Like, they only realize they're getting hungry when they're hangry. And it's like that emergency feeling, like I need to eat right now. Or they notice the need to pee until it's like a last minute emergency and they're like running for the nearest toilet. Or they don't notice like those clues coming from their body, like that they're getting overwhelmed, and they don't know it until they're in a full meltdown or shutdown. So that's like the muted side of things. And then if you go to the other end of that range of awareness, people report having an intense inner experience. So that's like heightened awareness of your body signals. And for people that have this intense inner experience, they describe their internal experience to be either like chaotic, like they are just noticing so many different body signals all at once. It's like,
Mm.
which one should I pay attention to? What does this all mean for me? Or they have like one or two body signals that are just all encompassing. Like I had a client a few years ago that every time he ate, he could feel his meals moving through his digestive tract. And so that's a really intense inner experience. Imagine like trying to focus on much else when you have this like really strong feeling in your body and you're not even sure what it means. That's like that answer in a nutshell. And that I just want to say one more really quick thing about that is like that we know that some people have like a muted experience for some body signals and then intense experience for other body signals. And so that how aware you are of your body fluctuates with the day too, depending on your stress level or how much you slept the day before, etc.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great explanation. I can imagine that could be very distracting to have that high level of awareness, the way you described, and also really confusing to have that muted level of awareness. And I can think of my clients as you're talking about that, thinking about how that fits in, and it makes a lot of sense. That would be really challenging and really important to work on. And, that self-awareness piece is so incredibly important, especially for autistic individuals and who we're going to kind of be focusing on today. So when you're working with autistic individuals, do you see a trend in this kind of this interoception awareness, or is it just kind of all very individualized?
Yeah, it is very individualized. I would say the trend that we're seeing is that for so many autistic people, they do have their interoception learning very much derailed by the world around them. And, like so many times our autistic clients are living in worlds that are not set up to like really validate and support their neurology, like the way that they need to feel safe in this world. And so they're just bombarded by so many different factors that can like really kind of be accidentally dismissive of their internal experience. Like, oh, it's not that loud in here. You're fine,
Mm.
and there's just like so many other experiences they're reporting that just makes them like really disconnect from their body to either survive what's going on, or
Yeah.
they begin to doubt their body because other people are saying one thing about their experience, but they're like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't like really match the way I feel. Like it's just
Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of things that are happening that are really affecting their interoceptive journey.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking of a client of mine that I offer equine assisted services in addition to the RDI work that I do. And when he comes out to the barn and we put shavings down in the stall, sometimes the shavings will get inside his boots. And it is so distracting. And so, in those moments, we kind of slow down and pause and help him to, be able to clear them out because we're going to go on a nice walk around the property and, I want him to feel comfortable. But to me, the way he presents it is it feels like he has rocks that he's stepping on in his boot, to have a few shavings in there. Would that be kind of an example of what you're referring to?
Yeah, like I love how you are taking this moment. You're being so curious and validating with him, right? Like, what's going on? I want to help you feel more comfortable. Let's do something together, like dumping out the shavings from your boots before we go on. So that's like really like being so curious about how his body feels and like, let's do something to help your body feel safe before we move on. Like, that is absolutely the key to the interoception work that we're doing.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, great. Well, I can't wait to get into more of those tips that you have in a minute, but I want to make sure to talk about this TED Talk that you have on your website that I saw, Dr. Sarah Garfinkel's TED Talk. I just loved it, and there's just so much I could talk about it for a while, but what she spoke about in this TED Talk, and you can elaborate as well, but from your perspective, but was talking about how our heart rates and our cardiac changes can tell us really important information, and that when we're watching our loved ones participate in an activity, she gave the example of running over fire, that our heart rates can sync up with the person's heart rate that we are watching. And it's fascinating. I've been learning about how we also do that with horses. Another topic for another day, but because I'm in the horse world as well. But so this work is really being studied a lot. And so it was neat to see that on your website and to learn about that. And it just made me think of emotional regulation and, how, I was just curious your thoughts more on this research that she spoke about, and also about emotional regulation, especially in terms of the parent-child relationship. And, when we're working on supporting our kids or even professionals too, right? We have to be really regulated and aware of our own responses and body signals when we're supporting. So just curious your thoughts on that study and that research and that knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I love Dr. Sarah Garfinkel's TED Talk. The brilliant interoception scientist. And I mean, I think that it just in a really quick nutshell, what she's capturing there is just, and what you're, I think, maybe alluding to is just the value of not only helping our clients or our own loved ones understand their body and how their body feels. This is key for us, and understanding how our body feels so that we can, and gosh, is this so hard? I'm speaking as a mother of two teenagers, one who's neurodivergent. It is really hard for me in a difficult moment to be like, okay, like, how's my body feeling? How do I get my heart rate to slow down? Because, you're talking about how like we sync into each other's rhythm. So if I can get my body to like try to be regulated, that's going to be helpful in that moment. So I think understanding that is important, but also having grace with yourself, because even though we know this science, it is so hard. It's so hard. And I think that even speaks to the value. Like, one of my clients told me, like, even when you're trying so hard to be a support to me and you just don't get it quite right, just apologize, because that's so deeply validating. And I've hold that so close. Like, I use it all the time, that advice with my own kids. Like, sorry, like I just didn't handle that quite right, or I made the wrong guess in what you needed, but I'm here for it. I'm here for you. Like, let's do this together, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point. Just being honest and authentic and owning, your own mistakes is so important as a parent. I use that a lot, and I agree. I have a teenager too, and an 11-year-old, and definitely have had those moments. But I also think, I wonder if, my daughter, and one of my daughters in particular, can become very emotional and have big emotions quickly. And I wonder how much, her reaction then I'm syncing up with. And then we're kind of in this path together, right? Can go downhill fast.
Goes real fast.
Yeah. All of a sudden, there you are. So, and I think that's helpful too, just to understand our bodies, and our bodies are, that's just how our bodies are operating, and so just to have that more awareness is helpful. It also helps me to give myself grace to say, okay, this is also part of that. It's not so easy, all the time to be regulated all the time.
No,
So
I don't know any person that's regulated all the time. And if there is a listener, I would love to learn from you. Yeah.
Me too, trust me. Okay, well, wonderful. Well, let's talk about some of these amazing tips because I'd love for our listeners to, have that opportunity to practice some of these things. And some of the tips that you recommended are so simple. Anybody can do them. You can try them today. And, I think that it's a great starting point. So, what would you share kind of like the first top tips that you recommend?
Yeah. Well, one of the tips we share a lot is to model your own interoception processes, which I don't want to say it's easy in a sense, like it can be a very big shift. At least it was a huge shift for me before knowing about interoception is to walk around narrating the way my body feels. Like I did not grow up in a household like that. I was not exposed to a lot of interoception vocabulary. So like really starting to be like, oh my goodness, like that sun is hurting my eyes. Like I need to put sunglasses on or, oh, my head is just pounding from all of this noise. I need my noise canceling headphones. Like just talking out loud or like, oh, I have this weird feeling underneath my belly button. I wonder if I have to pee, like just like
Yeah.
anything like that was so foreign to me, but it is so helpful if you can start to like just take even just one time a day to like talk out loud about the way your body feels. Like what you're doing is you're modeling that there's this internal process that you're noticing. It's helping you figure out what your body needs, but it's also getting that interoception vocabulary out there. So whether even if your child is, not yet speaking, like just narrating out loud, we know they're sponges for language, so many kids. So
Mhm.
really, you know, just getting that out there can be really important. So that's like my top tip because it can
Mhm.
be embedded into your normal existing routines. It's just a small little shift in like thinking about your body
Mhm.
and talking about it out loud.
Yeah, I love that. And I was just thinking, as an RDI consultant, when we work with parents, and we encourage a lot of modeling actually. So because we know that modeling can take the demand off, it can create a beautiful learning opportunity without pressure and allows the individual to really process information, without feeling like they have to perform a certain skill in that moment.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. Yep.
This show is brought to you by Therapeutic Approach to Growth. Therapeutic Approach to Growth helps families with relationship and behavioral needs. Their holistic programs are individualized to honor and respect each family and their autistic son or daughter's sense of self through programs such as relationship development intervention, naturalistic ABA, and animal assisted services. If you're finding yourself frustrated or discouraged with your current behavioral programs and would like to see more long-term meaningful growth for you and your family, then contact TAG today at www.tagforgrowth, that's TAGFORGROWTH.com, to learn more about how to schedule a consultation or how they can offer you the help your family needs, whether in person, remotely, or in a school setting. Again, that's www.tagforgrowth.com. I was wondering, as you were talking about that, for families that were feeling, and maybe you do this in your work, but for families that were feeling like that is so foreign or challenging, just to even have the awareness to bring these things to light and model in this way in the beginning, if that would be helpful for them to take a minute at the end of every day and just journal about the examples, that they gave their child that day, that reflection process. That's something that we do a lot in our work of having families just take and pause for 5 minutes and just reflect on, how they were able to work on that one goal. And even though it was fairly challenging to do, but were they successful? Was there anything else they could have done differently next time? And helping them bring that awareness, to the forefront.
Yeah, that's a great idea, especially if that's like a process they're already using and it's meaningful to them to journal. To incorporate that interoception reflection is a great idea.
Wonderful. And maybe you can speak to some activity ideas or some tips that you have when you're working, you are working, are you working one-on-one with clients as well?
Yes. Yep. So if we take it to like, so I kind of gave the modeling on the fly kind of thing, but another thing that we like to do is we're really working on building body curiosity, like not only in ourselves, but in our children. And we do usually chunk it into like one body part at a time, which tends to be like a little bit lower of a cognitive demand on us as the caregivers, but also on our children. So like, let's just say you're framing it like, and we're going to learn all the different ways our hands feel like this week or this month, whatever pace you want to do. Then we try to find activities that might be already happening, or we might offer activities that are designed to evoke a stronger sensation in that body part. So, like for hands, like maybe it's when your child's like washing their hands, or maybe when it's they're holding a warm or a cold drink, or you're going outside like in warm or hot weather, like something that might change the way their hands feel. And those are like what we're finding really ideal moments to be like, oh, like I wonder how your hands feel right now. Or what do you notice in your hands? Or how do they feel? Like we play around with a lot of language there until we find something that like really sticks for each kid. But like finding those moments that might be evoking a stronger sensation that helps capture that attention. And they're really great times to like notice, oh, how do your hands feel right now? Or like maybe the next week we're gonna, think about our feet and how our feet feel. So then when you find one time or two times during the day, like when they're putting on their shoes, like, oh, I wonder how your feet feel right now while you're putting your shoes on. So just little tiny moments can be really helpful to just exercise that body noticing muscle
Yeah,
almost, and helping
yeah.
that and when your child feels safe, when they're regulated, when they want to pay attention to their body.
I love that. That's so good. I think that I had not heard of that idea of isolating the different body parts before, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It really helps you to hone in on that specific awareness. And also, you mentioned it reduces the overwhelm of trying to do it all at once.
Yeah, like when you ask someone like, how does your body feel right now? I mean, like that's a really hard question for a lot of people to answer, right? You have to scan through all of these different body parts, pick out which is like what body signal is important to pay attention to, put language to it. I mean, it's complicated, really complicated.
Yes. Yes, that's such a good point. And I imagine with the non-speaking individuals, you're using the visual supports. Is that how you're working with those clients?
Yeah, we have a lot of visual supports that are intended to support language communication for all communicators, but we are doing a lot. People tend to ask, like, can we nurture interoception growth in non-speaking
Mm-hmm.
children? And the answer is absolutely. And I think sometimes our non-speaking kids are like so in tune with their bodies and they're expressing the way their bodies are feeling and how can we be really curious? Because it is a respectful guessing game sometimes of like, gosh, what are they telling me about their body right now? Like, what does their body need right now? Like, that's a really hard guessing game, but that guessing game is so important. It's very validating. You're curious and you're trying to figure out, like, what do you need right now? Like, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
That is so reinforcing to their internal experience. Like, they're noticing and expressing how their body feels. Like, so even
Mhm.
can't figure out what the intended meaning is, the fact that you're curious and you're trying is
Yeah.
so enforcing to that process for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is such a significant point because if then they feel heard, they feel validated, and it also just allows for that space to, really try to work together to figure that out.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you are so curious and validating, they're most likely going to feel safe with you. And the next time they have that internal discomfort, they might feel safe enough to express it. So the more we like, really like let them know that they feel heard, it really does contribute so much to their interoception.
Yeah. I was curious as you were sharing about that, if as you're working on these things with your clients, are you seeing that, and is the ultimate goal that they become more self-aware so that they can then self-advocate and be forthcoming in sharing, oh, I'm getting hungry, or I'm having pain in my stomach, or, whatever they're experiencing. Is that is that what you see occur? And is that the end kind of long-term goal?
Yeah, the end goal is definitely for them to understand their bodies enough for them to tell other people about how their body's feeling, what their body needs. So whether it's like watching like a client be able to communicate like a pain or unmet healthcare need for the first time, or, being able to like just even tell someone like, I need you to be quiet right now. Like, even if it's through their device, like quiet, like
Yes.
where it is, being able to advocate and meet their body's needs is definitely the ultimate goal.
So empowering. It's incredibly empowering. And I wonder how you work on, I have a client that has SIBO issues. And so do you work on things like, well, that's intense body awareness because they're feeling a lot of intense feelings and physical pain. And then also, I guess, how do you just differentiate how much and how, and for a non-speaking client too, that might be not receiving those signals when it's time to go to the bathroom because of these issues? It gets so complicated sometimes for these guys.
Extremely complicated. And when we're offering interoception work, and I know that someone like definitely has some kind of background in like chronic pain or chronic illness, like that I would not start with awareness of the gut or anything else that could potentially be uncomfortable. We try to start with like neutral body parts, like, and that's gonna be
Yeah.
different for everyone. Like how do your hands feel, how do your feet feel, and try to bring some awareness to their bodies so they can kind of start to understand this concept of interoception. So we kind of have like a platform that we can then start to like
Mm.
develop whatever skill like we would like to develop, whether it's them being able to like tell us a little bit more about their gut
Mhm.
experience, what things can we find to help bring comfort to your body during those moments, and really progress that way.
I love that. That's a much more, it's really setting them up for success to feel competent in a more of a neutral space and then getting to the more challenging situation that they can
Yeah,
handle.
absolutely, because so many of my clients, like, they do not feel agency over their body, meaning like they don't
Mhm.
feel like they have the power to change the way their body feels many times. And so when we start with more neutral body parts and we start to like, like, oh, let's like play around with different ways like that we can change the way your hands feel, then we can work towards, the more pressing issues. And I don't want to say that in a way that makes it seem easy that you can change the way your gut feels when you're having massive gut issues or whatever,
Right.
medical problem. But yes, like to try to be there and try to find ways to change the way the body
Mhm.
feels is like, obviously kind of the core of medicine in general, as also the core of our, our therapeutic approaches.
Absolutely. Well, I imagine that as they have more awareness, they can also share a little bit more with the doctors that are supporting those things too. It's like that medicine helped or that supplement didn't help or, whatever they're experiencing through those treatments. Because a lot of that's trial and error, and that's also another challenging experience.
Completely. Yeah. And so if we can provide the medical providers information more, like
Yeah.
the more specific we can get about the way our body feels, way our body's reacting to different treatments, the more information they obviously have to make more
Mhm.
informed decisions.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. Well, I know that you have amazing supports on your website. I've used them for sure with our clients, the visual supports. I'd love for you to share just real briefly how you use those and then we can talk about where our listeners can access them.
Yeah, well, we have like probably our most popular resource is called the Interoception curriculum, which has a lot of different like of those communication visual supports that we talked about. So like one of them is like just having like little menus of cards. Each menu is a different body part. So like for example, like the heart or the hands, and then the menu is just it's a list of a few words that you can use to describe the way your heart might feel or the way your hands might feel. I have like 15 different body parts usually. Like I have them on like a little key ring. And so it's just there like really quick, like in the moment. Like if I'm like, oh, like I wonder how your hands are feeling, I'll flip to that menu card of hands and then I'll have some like, oh, do your hands feel cold right now or hot right now or something else right now? So we have that kind of communication support there if a person's ready for that step of describing.
That's great. Okay. So when you're using those visuals and based on the way you described the body part, let's say your hands, then are you saying, okay, we know we're going to go wash our hands. I'm going to bring these visuals out in that moment to provide this opportunity to focus on this and then have them ready to go. That's kind of how
Yeah.
you're introducing. I love that. That's very
Yeah.
intentional then, as opposed to just in the moment, which I'm assuming you can do as well, but also it allows you to have that structure too, to think about those times where you can practice this interoception awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can have the cards there and we can model our experience to that form of communication too. We don't want to just be, if we're working on an alternative form of communication, we would be modeling that form of communication along with, our spoken way of communicating. So having those cards there intentionally allows them to be supported in communication, but then it also gives us a way to model how our hands are feeling while we get in there and wash our hands too.
Perfect. That's great. Wonderful. Well, I'm so grateful that we had this chance to talk about this important topic today and such great information for our listeners. And I'd love for you to share how our listeners can find you.
Yeah, probably the easiest place is my website. It's kelly-mahler.com. We have lots and lots of free resources on there. And also you can check out more about the Interoception curriculum if that's of interest.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate it. And I'll have all that information in the show notes as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm dancing on the edge again. The wind is calling my name. I'm dancing on the edge again. This time I'm not looking back there. You can change me. You can tell me down. I'll leave echoes in every place I find. I'll break the molds with rebels mind. I'm a hurricane of free born mind.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only. The content shared is based on the experiences, opinions, and perspectives of the hosts and their guests and should not be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. The discussions and topics covered are intended to foster understanding and awareness of autism therapies, but are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Before making any decisions regarding therapies or treatments, we strongly encourage you to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who can provide personalized recommendations based on your unique circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and producers are not responsible for any consequences, damages, or outcomes arising from the use or application of any information during the show.